They rejected her for being poor. But the moment a billionaire saw what they couldn't, everything changed. In the cold glass lobby of a luxury firm, Olivia Hayes, dressed in her only worn-out blazer and scuffed shoes, stood trembling as whispers circled her. Too poor, too small, not good enough. While the hiring manager dismissed her without even reading her file. But just as she turned to leave, humiliated and invisible, a black luxury car pulled up outside, and Alexander Kingsley, a billionaire known for turning broken stories into empires, stepped out and locked eyes with her like he saw something no one else did. Why would a billionaire stop for a rejected poor girl no one valued? What did Alexander see in Olivia that everyone else ignored? And how could one moment of rejection become the beginning of something that would shake both of their lives forever? Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. It gives me the strength and encouragement to keep writing beautiful stories. Olivia Hayes had learned early in life that poverty didn't just live in your pocket. It lived in the way people looked at you. It showed in the hesitation before a handshake, in the quick glance at your shoes, in the polite smile that never reached the eyes. That morning, it screamed louder than ever. The towering glass building of Blackridge Holdings reflected the gray sky above, its polished surface a mirror of everything Olivia felt she wasn't. Clean, perfect, untouchable. She paused at the entrance, certain clutching her thin folder tightly against her chest, as if it could somehow shield her from what waited inside. Her blazer, once navy blue, had faded into something between exhaustion and hope. The sleeves were slightly frayed. Her shoes had been polished 3 times the night before, but no amount of effort could hide the cracks. Still, she stepped forward, because she had no choice. Next, the receptionist called without looking up. Olivia approached, offering a small, careful smile. "I'm here for the assistant position interview." The woman behind the desk glanced at her briefly, her eyes scanning Olivia from head to toe in less than a second. It was quick, but it was enough. "Take a seat." Olivia nodded and moved toward the waiting area, where 3 other candidates sat. They were everything she expected: sharp suits, confident posture, expensive watches that caught the light just right. One of them glanced at her and quickly looked away, whispering something to another. A soft chuckle followed. Olivia pretended not to notice. Her fingers tightened around her folder. She thought about her mother back home, sitting on the edge of their small bed, forcing a smile that didn't quite hide the worry in her eyes. "This is your chance, Liv," she had said. "Don't let them see fear." Olivia swallowed. Too late for that. Olivia Hayes. Her name echoed through the room like a test she wasn't ready to take. She stood quickly, smoothing her blazer, and followed the assistant down a long hallway lined with framed achievements and awards. Each one felt like a reminder of how far away she was from belonging here. Inside the interview room, 3 people sat behind a polished table. None of them smiled. "Have a seat," one of them said. Olivia obeyed, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure they could hear it. "Let's be direct," another interviewer began, flipping through her file. "Your qualifications are average." Olivia nodded slowly. "I understand, but I'm a fast learner and we're not finished." Her voice fell silent. "You don't have the background we're looking for. No prestigious schools, no high-profile experience." He paused, then looked up at her. "And frankly, this company values presentation." The words hung in the air. Presentation. Olivia felt heat crawl up her neck. "I'm willing to work harder than anyone else," she said, her voice steady despite everything inside her shaking. I just need a chance. The third interviewer leaned back, Chuchin crossing his arms. This isn't a charity. The sentence landed like a slap. Olivia blinked, forcing herself not to break. I didn't ask for charity, she said quietly. I asked for an opportunity. A brief silence followed, then a sigh. We appreciate your time, Miss Hayes, the first interviewer said, already closing her file. But we're looking for someone who better fits the image of this company. Image. There it was again. Olivia nodded, standing slowly. Thank you for seeing me. But they hadn't. Not really. She turned and walked out, each step heavier than the last. The hallway felt longer this time, the air colder. By the time she reached the lobby, the whispers had already returned. She actually thought she had a chance? Did you see her shoes? Olivia kept walking, one step, then another. Don't stop. Don't cry. Not here. The glass doors opened, and the outside air hit her face like a wake-up call. The sky had darkened, and a light drizzle had begun, each drop soaking into her already fragile composure. She stepped onto the pavement, her vision blurring, rejected for being poor. The words echoed in her mind, louder with every heartbeat. She barely noticed the sudden hush around her, or the sleek black car pulling up to the curb, or the way the driver quickly stepped out to open the back door. It wasn't until she heard footsteps, firm, unhurried, that she looked up, and everything shifted. A tall man stepped out of the car, his presence commanding without effort. His suit was perfectly tailored, his expression calm but sharp, like someone who saw everything and missed nothing. Alexander Kingsley. Even Olivia, living far from the world of wealth, knew the name. Billionaire, visionary, untouchable. He was supposed to walk past her. People like him always did. But he didn't. He stopped, right in front of her. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. Olivia felt her breath catch as his gaze met hers. Not with pity, not with judgment, but with something she couldn't quite understand. Recognition? Interest? It made no sense. He glanced briefly at the building behind her, then back at her face, as if putting together a puzzle only he could see. You were just inside, he said. It wasn't a question. Olivia hesitated. Yes. And they rejected you? Again, not a question. Her throat tightened. Yes. A faint shadow crossed his expression. Not surprise, not even disappointment. Something closer to certainty, like he had expected it. Alexander took a step closer, lowering his voice slightly. Good. Olivia blinked, confused. Good. Nothing about this felt good. He studied her for another second, his gaze lingering, not on her clothes, not on her shoes, but on her eyes. Because sometimes, he said calmly, the places that reject you are the ones that would have limited you. Olivia's heart skipped. What did he mean? Why was he saying this, and more importantly, why her? Alexander straightened, glancing once more at the building before looking back at her. Tell me something, Olivia Hayes, he said, his voice carrying a quiet intensity that made her pulse race. If someone gave you a real opportunity, not charity, not a favor, would you take it? Olivia swallowed. This moment felt unreal, dangerous, life-changing. Yes, she whispered. A slight smile touched his lips. Good, he said again. But this time, it sounded like the beginning of something, not the end. And as the rain began to fall harder around them, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that the rejection she thought had broken her had just placed her directly in the path of something far bigger than she could imagine. What exactly did Alexander Kingsley see in her? And what kind of opportunity was a billionaire about to offer a girl the world had just thrown away? The rain had started to fall harder, soaking through Olivia's thin blazer, but she barely noticed anymore. All her attention was fixed on Alexander Kingsley. A man like him didn't stop for people like her. Men like him existed in headlines, in stories told from a distance, not standing a few feet away, asking her questions that sounded like they could change everything. If someone gave you a real opportunity, his words echoed again in her mind. Opportunity, not charity. That distinction mattered more to her than anything. Alexander studied her silence, as if measuring something deeper than her hesitation. Then, without another word, he turned slightly and gestured toward the open car door. "Get in." Olivia blinked, startled. What?" "If you want the opportunity you just said yes to," he replied calmly, "you'll get in the car." Her heart skipped. Everything about this felt like a risk, a dangerous, life-altering, irreversible risk. Her instincts screamed at her to be careful. She didn't know this man. Not really. Yes, he was famous. Yes, he was respected. But stepping into a billionaire's car after being rejected from a job interview? It sounded like the beginning of a mistake. But then again, so did walking away. Olivia looked back at the glass building behind her. The same building that had just reduced her to nothing more than her appearance. The same place that didn't see her, didn't hear her, didn't believe in her. Then she looked at Alexander. A man who, for reasons she couldn't understand, had stopped. A man who had seen her. "Okay," she said quietly. And with that one word, she stepped into the unknown. The interior of the car was silent, smooth, and impossibly refined. The door closed behind her with a soft click, sealing her into a world she had never been part of. Alexander entered from the other side. "Drive," he instructed. The car pulled away almost instantly, leaving the towering building and everything it represented behind. Olivia sat stiffly, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She wasn't sure where to look, what to say, or even how to breathe properly in a space that felt too perfect for her existence. "You're uncomfortable," Alexander said. It wasn't a question. Olivia gave a small, nervous smile. "Is it that obvious?" "Yes." A brief pause followed. "But that's not a bad thing." She turned slightly toward him. "It's not?" "No," he said simply. "It means you haven't learned to pretend." That caught her off guard. Most people saw discomfort as weakness. He saw it as honesty. Olivia hesitated, then asked the question that had been building inside her since the moment he stopped her. "Why me?" Alexander didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out the window, watching the rain race against the glass like it was part of a memory only he could see. "Because I've seen what happens when people like you are ignored," he said finally. Olivia frowned slightly. "People like me?" "People who are underestimated," he clarified. "People who are judged before they're understood." His tone had changed, subtly, but enough for her to notice. There was something personal in it, something unresolved. "You talk like you've experienced it," she said carefully. For the first time, Alexander smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that came from happiness. It came from memory. "I have." Olivia blinked. That didn't make sense. He was Alexander Kingsley, billionaire, powerful, untouchable. How could someone like him understand rejection? As if reading her thoughts, he added, Not everyone starts at the top, Olivia." The car slowed slightly as it approached a traffic light. "For a long time," he continued, "I was the person no one took seriously. Wrong background, wrong connections, wrong everything." Olivia leaned in slightly, drawn in despite herself. What changed? Alexander turned his head, meeting her gaze again. "I stopped asking for permission." The words settled between them, heavy, powerful, unapologetic. Olivia felt something shift inside her, something small, but undeniable. Hope. The car eventually pulled into a quiet, private area, a sleek building far removed from the noise and judgment of the city streets. Olivia stepped out slowly, her eyes scanning the surroundings. "Where are we?" she asked. "One of my offices," Alexander replied. "One of course." He walked ahead, and after a brief hesitation, Olivia followed. Inside, the space was even more intimidating than the last. Modern, minimal, and designed with a kind of quiet power that didn't need to announce itself. Alexander moved toward a desk, picking up a thin file. "I had my team pull what they could find on you," he said. Olivia stiffened slightly. "That was fast." "I don't waste time," he replied. He opened the file, glancing through it briefly before looking back at her. "No prestigious education," he said. "No influential connections." Her chest tightened slightly. "Here it comes." "But," he continued, "consistent top performance in every environment you've been in. Multiple part-time jobs, supporting your household." Olivia froze. He noticed that. He saw that. Alexander closed the file. "Tell me something," he said, stepping closer. "Why didn't you give up?" The question hit deeper than she expected, because she had thought about it more times than she could count. "My mom," she said softly. "She's all I have." A brief silence followed. Then Alexander nodded, almost to himself. "Good answer." Olivia let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. "So, what exactly is this opportunity?" she asked. Alexander didn't respond right away. Instead, he walked past her, then turned. "I'm building something new," he said. "Something that requires people who don't break under pressure." He paused. People who know what it means to have nothing and still keep going. Olivia's heart began to race again. "And you think that's me?" "I don't think," he said calmly. "I know." The certainty in his voice was unsettling and reassuring at the same time. "But understand this," he added, his tone sharpening slightly. "This won't be easy. There will be pressure, there will be expectations, and there will be moments where you'll wish you had walked away today." Olivia swallowed. That didn't scare her as much as it should have, because she had already lived through worse. "And if I don't walk away?" she asked. Alexander's gaze locked onto hers. "Then you won't just change your life," he said. "You'll redefine it." The room felt smaller, the moment heavier, more real. But something still lingered in the back of Olivia's mind, a question she couldn't ignore. "What's the catch?" she asked quietly. Because there was always a catch. Alexander didn't smile this time. Instead, his expression turned serious, almost guarded. "The catch," he said slowly. "How is that once you start, there's no going back to who you used to be." Olivia's breath caught. No going back. To the girl who was rejected, to the life she knew, to the safety of being invisible. She looked down at her hands, then back at him. And in that moment, standing on the edge of something terrifying and extraordinary, Olivia realized the truth. She had already stepped too far forward to turn back. But what exactly was Alexander building? And why did it feel like this opportunity came with consequences neither of them had fully revealed? Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It gives me the strength and encouragement to keep writing beautiful stories. Olivia didn't sleep that night. Even after she returned home, back to the small apartment with peeling paint and a flickering hallway light, her mind refused to rest. Everything felt different. The same worn couch, the same narrow kitchen, the same quiet hum of the old ceiling fan. But none of it felt the same anymore, because she wasn't the same. She sat at the edge of her bed, still in her damp clothes, replaying every second of the day in her mind. Rejected, humiliated, then chosen by a billionaire. It didn't feel real. "You're late," a soft voice came from the doorway. Olivia looked up. Her mother stood there, wrapped in a thin robe, her face lined with both age and quiet strength. She had always been that way, fragile in appearance, unbreakable in spirit. "I'm sorry," Olivia said, forcing a small smile. "It was a long day." Her mother studied her carefully. "Did you get the job?" The question hung in the air. Olivia hesitated. "No," she said finally. A flicker of disappointment crossed her mother's face, but it was quickly replaced with something else. Understanding. "That's okay," she said gently. "Something better will come." Olivia let out a soft breath. "I think it already did." Her mother frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Olivia stood up slowly, trying to find the right words for something that didn't fully make sense even to her. "I met someone today," she said. "Someone important." Her mother raised an eyebrow. "Important how?" Olivia hesitated again. "His name is Alexander Kingsley." The reaction was instant. Her mother's eyes widened slightly, not with excitement, but with recognition. "I've heard that name," she said carefully. "He's powerful." Olivia nodded. "He offered me an opportunity." "And you trust him?" her mother asked, her voice quiet but firm. The question hit deeper than expected. Did she? Olivia thought back to the way Alexander had looked at her. Not at her clothes, not at her circumstances, but at her. Like she mattered. "I don't know if I trust him," she admitted. "But I trust what he saw in me." Her mother was silent for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Sometimes," she said, "the right doors don't feel safe when they open." Olivia swallowed. That was exactly how it felt. The next morning came too quickly. Olivia stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the only outfit she had that looked remotely presentable. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't impressive, but it was hers, and today, it would have to be enough. Her phone buzzed. A single message. "Driver is outside. No greeting, no explanation, just certainty." Olivia took a deep breath, grabbed her bag, and stepped out. The car ride felt shorter this time, but heavier, not because of fear, because of expectation. When they arrived, she was escorted inside immediately. No waiting room, no whispers, no judgmental glances. It was a different world. Alexander was already there. "Right on time," he said as she entered. Olivia nodded. "I didn't want to be late." "Good," he replied, "because today isn't about introductions." He gestured toward a tablet on the table. "It's about decisions." Olivia stepped closer, her eyes scanning the screen. Numbers, reports, data she didn't fully understand, but could feel the weight of. "What is this?" she asked. "A failing division," Alexander said. "One of my companies is losing millions every month." Olivia blinked. "And you're showing me this because..." Because you're going to help me fix it. The words hit like a shockwave. Me? She said, almost laughing in disbelief. I don't have that kind of experience. I'm aware. Then why would you trust me with something like this? Alexander stepped closer, his expression sharp. Because experience teaches people what should work, he said. But desperation teaches people what must work. Olivia froze. That division, he continued, pointing to the screen, is run by people with perfect resumes, perfect backgrounds, perfect presentations. He paused. And they're failing. The implication was clear. Sit, he said. Olivia obeyed. For the next few hours, he continued, you're going to look at this problem with fresh eyes. No assumptions, no limitations. He leaned slightly closer. And no fear. Olivia stared at the screen. This was insane. She didn't belong here. She wasn't qualified. Stop thinking like that. She looked up, startled. Alexander was watching her closely. You're already doing what they did to you yesterday, he said, dismissing yourself before you've even begun. Her chest tightened. He was right. Look again, he said. This time. She did. Hours passed, slowly at first, then all at once. Olivia asked questions, simple ones, the kind most people would overlook. Why is this process so complicated? Why are you targeting this audience? Why not cut this entirely? At first, she second-guessed herself, but Alexander didn't interrupt, didn't correct, didn't dismiss. He just listened, carefully, intently. And the more she spoke, the more something unexpected happened. The confusion started to clear. Patterns began to form. And for the first time since she walked into that building, Olivia didn't feel small. She felt capable. By the end of it, the tablet was filled with notes, changes, ideas, possibilities. Silence settled over the room. Alexander picked up the tablet, reviewing everything she had written. Olivia held her breath. This was the moment, the judgment, the confirmation that she had overstepped, or... That's it, he said. She blinked. What? That's what they missed. Her heart skipped. You saw the problem, he continued, not from the top, but from the ground. Olivia felt something rise in her chest, relief, pride, disbelief. You did in a few hours, he added, what they couldn't do in 6 months. The words hit harder than anything else, because for the first time, someone wasn't just giving her a chance. They were recognizing her value. But just as that feeling began to settle, Alexander's expression shifted. Slightly, subtly, enough for her to notice. This is where things change, he said. Olivia's stomach tightened. What do you mean? He set the tablet down. If we move forward, he said, this won't just be about solving problems. There was a pause, a heavier one. It will put you in positions where people will question you, challenge you, try to break you. Olivia's confidence wavered slightly. And not everyone will be happy that you're here, he added. A chill ran down her spine. Why? She asked. Alexander held her gaze. Because the moment you rise, you threaten the people who never thought you would. The room felt colder, quieter, more dangerous. Olivia swallowed. She had wanted an opportunity, but this felt like stepping into a war she didn't even know existed. And yet, she couldn't walk away. Not now. Not after everything. But one question lingered, stronger than ever. If helping him fix a failing company was only the beginning, then what exactly was Alexander preparing her for? And why did it feel like the real challenge hadn't even started yet? The first sign that everything was about to change came quietly. Too quietly. 3 days later, Olivia stood in front of a full glass conference room, her reflection staring back at her like someone she was still trying to recognize. Inside the room sat executives, men and women in tailored suits, people who had spent years building authority, influence, and power. And now, they were waiting for her. Her grip tightened slightly around the tablet in her hands. This wasn't supposed to happen this fast. She had expected time, training, preparation. Instead, Alexander had given her something else entirely: pressure. "Remember," his voice said behind her. Olivia turned. Alexander stood a few steps away, calm as ever, like this moment was nothing more than a routine step in a much larger plan. "They won't respect you when you walk in," he continued. "Not because of your ideas, but because of where you come from." Olivia swallowed. She already knew that. "They'll look at your clothes, your background, your silence." He stepped closer. "And they'll decide who you are before you speak." Her chest tightened. "That's exactly what happened at the interview," she said quietly. Alexander nodded once. "Yes." A brief pause followed. Then his voice lowered, sharper now. "So don't give them the same version of you that walked out of that building." Something shifted inside her. Not fear, not doubt. Something stronger. "Who do I give them?" she asked. Alexander's gaze locked onto hers. "The version of you they can't ignore." The doors opened, and Olivia walked in. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned, and just like Alexander said, they judged her. She saw it instantly. The slight raise of an eyebrow, the subtle exchange of glances, the silent questions. Who is she? Why is she here? This is who he chose. Her heart pounded, but she didn't stop, didn't hesitate, didn't shrink. She walked to the front of the room, placed the tablet on the table, and turned to face them. "My name is Olivia Hayes," she began, her voice steady despite everything inside her. "And I'm here to talk about why this division is failing." A few expressions shifted. Not impressed, but curious. One of the executives leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "And what exactly qualifies you to make that assessment?" he asked. There it was. The challenge, the dismissal, the same energy she had felt just days ago. But this time, she was ready. "Nothing," Olivia said. The room went still. The man frowned. "Excuse me?" "I don't have the qualifications you respect," she continued calmly. "I don't have the background you expect. And I don't fit the image you're used to." A few people exchanged glances, confused now, interested. "But that's exactly why I can see what you can't." Silence. Real silence. Olivia tapped the tablet, projecting the data onto the screen behind her. "You built the system based on assumptions," she said, her confidence growing with every word. "Assumptions about your customers, your process, your priorities." She turned, pointing at the numbers. "And those assumptions are costing you millions." The room shifted. Postures straightened, attention sharpened. No more whispers, no more judgment. Now, they were listening. Minutes turned into something more. Olivia spoke with clarity she didn't know she had. She broke down problems others had overlooked, simplified strategies that had been overcomplicated, or challenged ideas that had gone unquestioned. And for the first time in that room, no one interrupted her. No one dismissed her. No one looked at her like she didn't belong. Because she had already proven that she did. By the time she finished, the room was silent again. But this time, it felt different. The same executive who had questioned her earlier leaned forward. "How long did it take you to put this together?" he asked. Olivia hesitated for a split second. "Hours," she said. A ripple of disbelief passed through the room. "Hours?" someone repeated. "Yes." Another silence followed, but this one wasn't filled with doubt. It was filled with realization. From the back of the room, Alexander watched, quiet, still, observing everything. He saw the shift, the moment doubt turned into respect, the moment rejection turned into recognition, the moment Olivia stopped being invisible and became undeniable. After the meeting, the room slowly emptied. Executives who had once questioned her now nodded in acknowledgement as they passed. Some even offered brief words of respect. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was real. Olivia stood there, her mind still catching up to what had just happened. "You did exactly what I expected," Alexander said, stepping beside her. She let out a breath, almost laughing. "I didn't feel like it." "That's the point," he replied. "Growth doesn't feel comfortable." She turned to him. "Why did you do this?" she asked. "Why take a chance on me?" Alexander didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out at the city beyond the glass walls. "For a long time," he said finally, "I was surrounded by people who looked right, sounded right, but thought exactly the same." He glanced at her. "And sameness is the fastest way to fail." Olivia nodded slowly. "So I'm different." "Yes," he said simply. "And that's your power." The words settled deep, because for most of her life, different had felt like a weakness. Now, it felt like an advantage. Weeks later, everything had changed. The division began to recover. Strategies shifted, results improved. And Olivia, the girl who had been rejected for being poor, was now sitting at tables where decisions were made. Not because someone gave her charity, but because someone recognized her value. One evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Olivia stood by the window in Alexander's office. "You were right," she said softly. "About what?" "The places that reject you," she replied. "They would have limited me." Alexander nodded slightly. "And now?" Olivia smiled, small but certain. "Now I know my worth doesn't depend on where I come from." She turned to face him. "It depends on what I do next." Alexander returned the look. "Exactly." And somewhere in the city, another girl walked into a building, hoping for a chance, hoping to be seen, hoping to be chosen, just like Olivia once had. But what she didn't know yet was this: sometimes rejection isn't the end of your story. It's the moment that leads you exactly where you were always meant to be. Because all it takes is one person, one moment, one decision to change everything. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It gives me the strength and encouragement to keep writing beautiful stories. Thank you.